All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the live stream. Just wanted to make sure that I share this with the appropriate people first. But we're going to be talking about the Feast of Trumpets because that has just passed. And so I thought it would be relevant to talk about this feast, which went until this evening, and then to talk about the feasts that are coming up. We got two other ones for what we would call the fall season. Again, I will be careful using that term because it's not a scriptural term. I'm going to go to my email and show you a fascinating picture that this family called the McFeeders shared with me, and they're some wonderful people that attend congregation with me. Let me go ahead and do that now because I feel it would be appropriate. Now, the new moon was sighted last night. The new moon was sighted yesterday. There was a cool little picture of a sliver that I want to show everybody. And this is it right here. So here we go. And don't mind this. On this side, you can see I'm having a little bit of a theological dispute or discussion with a professor. So don't mind that. But here's a lovely picture of the new moon. Let me go ahead and zoom in here. You can see the new moon right there. Now, let me reiterate. The Aviv barley was found. Becca Bitterman, she's a witness in Israel. She's a witness in the land. Now, I believe we need the barley and the new moon in the land to establish uniformity, but we can look at the moon out in the dispersion because it's something that we can observe. So here's the new moon. Here's the little sliver crescent. It's very visible, and so we know to start the new month. We know that this new 29 and a half, sometimes 30-day period has now started. And so I'm going to go ahead and go to Leviticus, and we'll go to chapter 23, because that's a very important chapter to actually learn about the feasts. And let's not overlook it. So I'm going to go to Leviticus or Vayikra chapter 23, which says, "Again, Yahweh spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, In the 7th month, on the 1st of the month, you shall have a rest, a reminder by blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. You shall not do any laborious work, but you shall present an offering by fire to Yahweh." Now, due to my poor planning, I was not able to get the proper rest that I needed for trumpets, because trumpets calls not only for a rest, but for the blowing of shofars at the sighting of that new moon and for a holy convocation that same exact day. Of course, once you sight the new moon, you're going to obviously have an assembly probably the next day that you wake up, because that's still part of the same day scripturally. So you're going to be able to get up, you're going to be able to go and assemble, and then you're going to be able to do your thing, which is not work for the day and perhaps spend time with your family. And I know a number of us are caught off guard by this day, and we don't plan properly. And that's where the mercy of Yahweh comes in, that allows us to make mistakes and then to hopefully make corrections on the fly. Now, what I was getting to is that I did have Becca Bitterman. She did go into the fields in Israel, and so she saw the Aviv barley on March 8th. She saw the first new moon on March 11th, and so that's when the official head of the year was. So then, of course, they did the count to Passover and unleavened bread, then 50 more days to get to Pentecost, and then been keeping track of the new moons to get to this exact month. Now, what we need to know and need to realize is that we are in a ketubah, contractual agreement with Yahweh. And what that means is, even though the consummation scripturally has not happened yet, and Yeshua, our bridegroom, has not come back, the Torah is a legally binding document for us. And we see Yeshua talking to his disciples in John chapter 16 and in verse 4, and we're going to read through verse 15. He says, "I did not tell you these things at the beginning because I was with you then. Now I am going back to the one who sent me, and none of you asked me, 'Where are you going?' But you are filled with sadness because I have told you all this. Let me assure you, it is better for you that I go away. I say this because when I pray, I will send the helper, or the Ruach, to you. But if I did not go, the helper would not come. Now, this is very important because we're going to see the need for a helper here. When the helper, or the Ruach, comes, he will show the people of the world how wrong they are about sin, about being right with God, and about judgment. He will prove that they are guilty of sin because they don't believe in me. He will show them how wrong they are about how to be right with God. The helper will do this because I am going to the Father. You will not see me then. Now, in the Greek, we can do a little bit of an argument about the pronouns of the Spirit. That's a whole different realm of discussion that will not be had in this video. You will not see me then. And he will show them how wrong their judgment is because their leader has already been condemned. I have so much more to tell you, but it is too much for you to accept now. But when the Spirit of truth comes, he will lead you all into truth. He will not speak his own words. He will speak only what he hears and will tell you what will happen in the future. The Spirit of truth will bring glory to me by telling you what he receives from me. All that the Father has is mine. That is why I said that the Spirit will tell you what he receives from me. So we have spiritual conviction, and we have the Ruach guiding us to be able to keep the Torah and to keep the feasts properly. And if we look at and if we truly understand the symbolism behind our marriage with Yeshua and the customs, this is important because when we're keeping the feast days on the right dates or doing it as best as possible, we're preparing for Yeshua to return. We're preparing for the right time at which he will be coming back. It says, and I found an interesting article because I'd been doing tons of research on the Hebraic wedding tradition. And here are some of the ancient Jewish wedding customs. So the groom's father would choose a bride for his son, and then either through a servant or messenger. We saw this. We saw this through Abraham, and we saw this through Jacob. And so in Genesis, the patriarchs got wives for their sons using their servants. And then if the bride's father agreed upon the marriage, they would come to terms on payment. So the father would pay the bride price, right? And then basically getting the woman for the son. Then the son would essentially go back to the father's land. He would build an accessory dwelling unit, almost, so to speak, for the woman to be able to come back. And so this is where we're at now. We're betrothed to Yeshua. This wedding that's going to happen in the future, there's going to be a wedding party. This Torah is already legally binding. So we're going to have a wedding party in the future. And so, yes, that's right. So Abraham found Rivkah, his servant. He commissioned his servant to find Rebecca, for his son Isaac. That's what I was trying to say, and I was losing track of that in my mind. That's what I meant to say, so perfect. And then they would have a ketubah, or covenant contract. This is where the Torah comes in. We are in covenant contract with Yeshua, and then drink wine as a symbolic sealing of the marriage. And that's interesting because Yeshua said to take of this wine because this is the blood that I shed for you. Of course, symbolically, we don't mean that literally, because in the Torah it says that if you drink blood, you will be cut off from among the people. It is a sin to try to say, drink blood, do it literally. Absolutely not. Or that Yeshua was implying something other than that being symbolic. At this point, they were betrothed, right? So basically the marriage is legally binding. It just has not been consummated. And then what happens is, at this point, the groom then appoints a friend so that the friend can communicate between the groom and the woman, the groom and the woman that's going to be his bride. And so as the groom is working on the property or trying to earn the money so that he can bring her in, he is trying to communicate to her through a designated friend. And that is what Yeshua has done in John 16. He has told his disciples, look, here's my designated friend. I'm going to prepare a place for you. And while I do that, let us communicate through this messenger or this suitable helper that I'm going to send to you. And that helper will give you conviction, will lead you, will guide you. Essentially, the Holy Spirit is communicating what Yahweh wants to say to us as he is preparing a place for us. We got the Father, and it's interesting because the Father only knows when the Son's going to come back according to Scripture. And that's because if you look at the Jewish wedding tradition, the Father will commission the Son to come and get us once the Son has finalized preparing the place. So that's all important to know. And in Acts chapter 2, we see the very outpouring of this Spirit. We see a quotation from the book of the prophets, from the book of Joel, where it says, in the last days, God says, I will pour out my Spirit upon all people. You know, your young men will see visions, your old men will dream dreams, your daughters are going to prophesy. He's going to show wonders in the heavens. The sun will turn to blood, or excuse me, the sun will be turned to darkness, the moon to blood. That's also written in Revelation, but that's not a new concept. None of this, what we're seeing, it's not this introduction of the Spirit, because clearly we see the Spirit all over the New Testament. But the idea here is that we are supposed to have the Spirit guide us and teach us how to do these feast days, how to keep the calendar, how to do it all as best as we can, so that we can prepare for Yeshua coming at the right time. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show the moon cycles, and here's why that's really important to know. So what we saw yesterday, let me see if I can zoom in here actually. Yes, I can. So what we saw, and actually this is not really the new moon should be a little sliver here, so just pretend this is a conjunction moon. This website's a little bit off, but this is a conjunction moon. Conjunction just means, okay, so if I just explain the moon phases. So the moon has a start. It starts when there's a crescent that you can see, a little sliver, because you have to be able to observe it. And at the end of the month, there's something called a conjunction, where the moon is showing absolutely nothing. That's what this is. This is not a new moon, because a conjunction can last anywhere from 12 hours to 4 days. What that means is that the moon doesn't show anything. It's void of light. There's no way to determine the head of the month. But once you see a small sliver, and I will go ahead and show the other email just so everybody's clear about that again, this is what it looks like. So we saw the new moon. We have permission, because it is the 7th new moon of the month, to go ahead and commemorate and start our Feast of Trumpets. Let's see. Now, getting back to the other page that had the phases, what we have is a full month here. We have the waning crescent, which is just a little bit after we see the sliver of the first new moon. Then we have we have the waxing crescent. Sorry, I'm going the opposite way. We have the waxing crescent, which is a little bit bigger than the sliver crescent. Then we have the first quarter, which would be after a quarter of the month has passed, which is usually anywhere between 6 or 7 days. And then we have a waxing gibbous, and then a full moon at the very middle of the month. So we have conjunction, we have a new moon, and then roughly 15 days after the new moon, we have a full moon. So that's when we would have the Feast of Tabernacles, which I'll get to in Leviticus 23. And then we have, let's skip the waning gibbous. We go to third quarter. That means 3/4 of the month has passed. So the moon phases are something that people commonly learn in 3rd grade. They're a relatively simple concept to understand. And then we come all the way here, and we're at conjunction at the very end of the month. And any time between, sometimes I would say on average, it's about 2 days. So anywhere from 12 hours to 4 days, but usually it's about 2 days. We have a new month, and then we start this whole cycle all over again. For the understanding of the full moon, you can refer to Psalm 81, which talks about blowing the trumpet in the month of your feast day and at the full moon of that same month. That would only happen in 2 months, because there are only 2 feasts that happen on full moons, if we go based off the understanding that the moon would be determining the months. And those would be the Passover feast, and then the second one is the Feast of Tabernacles. So if we go to Leviticus, and we're going to see the rest of it, now that we can start our count for this month. Sorry, I think that's the wrong one. Here it is. Now that we've started our count for this month, that means we got to count 10 more days. We're going to see that in Leviticus chapter 23 and verse 26. Then Yahweh said to Moses, saying, on exactly the 10th day of this 7th month is the day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation for you. Okay, so another gathering, another high Sabbath. And you shall humble yourselves and present an offering by fire to Yahweh. You shall do no work on this very day, for it is a day of atonement, to make atonement on your behalf before Yahweh your Elohim. So if there's no one who humbles themselves, or in other translations, it would say afflict themselves on this very day, they will be cut off. And this is a permanent statute throughout your generations in all your dwelling places. Yes, even in the dispersion. Jeremiah 29 is another reference for proof that we're supposed to be doing everything in the dispersion. God commands us to live life as usual, to plant vineyards, to plant gardens, to not treat everybody as a foreigner, but to actually end up building households, getting married, etc. And so it says that it is to be a Sabbath of complete rest, right? On the 9th of the month at evening, from evening until evening, you shall keep your Sabbath. So we had the new moon sighting. So let's count 8 more evenings. And once we get there, we're at the 9th of the month from evening, and then we're to the 10th of the month. So let's see. Today is Friday, September 6th. And yesterday we saw the new moon. So from the 14th to the 15th, technically, we would have the Sabbath of complete rest for the Day of Atonement. Then we see that the 15th day of the 7th month is the Feast of Booths. So we would count 5 more days and we would get to the Feast of Tabernacles. So we're talking about the 20th of September. We're supposed to get to the Feast of Tabernacles. Then there's an 8th day holy convocation, another Sabbath, and another day of assembling. So on the 28th, we would have an 8th day assembly. Yes, I got it right. Yeah, on the 8th, that would be the 8th day assembly. And then of course we would have our usual weekly Sabbaths in between these times. Now, as far as I'm aware, again, I will reiterate this, the spring equinox and barley calendar are about 9 days apart. So these feasts will probably be, give or take, about 9 or 10 days in difference from each other, because I know a lot of people in the movement are keeping that calendar. So as far as I'm concerned, I want to do my best to help people understand the calendar that I would keep and why I do it. And that's why I'm going to go to Matthew 25 to stress the importance of making sure that we have the times correct. And let me make sure this is not an awfully, it is an awfully long chapter. Okay. All right. Well, basically, let's just say there are 5 verses.
How do you sleep at night?
On a mattress from
I
Mattress
put
Firm.
oil.
So I sleep.
I
It's
don't know
the
what
best
deal
sale of
with
the year.
that is,
Get a
but
Sealy
it
King
is
bed
what
for
it
a
is.
queen price. Get matched at Mattress Firm.
Let me
Sleep
let that
at night.
play. So in Matthew, we have 5 wise virgins and 5 foolish virgins, and 5 they bring oil, and the other ones they don't have oil, and so they're told go out and buy for your. So, and because they don't have oil, Yeshua comes out and says, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Be on alert then, because you do not know the day or the hour. And so, all right, here we go. Then the kingdom of heaven will be comparable to 10 virgins. I'm just going to read this. Who took their lamps and went out to meet the groom. 5 of them were foolish and 5 were prudent. For when the foolish took their lamps, they did not take extra oil with them, but the prudent ones took oil in flasks with their lamps. Now, while the groom was delaying, they all became drowsy and began to sleep. But at midnight, there finally was a shout, behold the groom, come out to meet him. Then all those virgins got up and trimmed their lamps. Of course, this is symbolic, right? We're not literal. We're symbolically virgins upon our repentance. Paul talks about this in the Corinthian letters. Verse 8, but the foolish virgins said to the prudent ones, give us some of your oil because our lamps are going out. However, the prudent ones answered, no, there most certainly would not be enough for us and you to go instead to the merchants and buy some for yourselves. But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the groom came, and those who were ready went in with him to the wedding feast. So we see the importance of being ready at the right time and having all the things that we need. And the door was shut. So you got to make it in by a certain time. Yet later, the other virgins also came, saying, Lord, Lord, open for us. But he answered, saying, truly I say to you, I do not know you. Be on the alert then, because you do not know the day nor the hour. So they were not prepared. They were not at the place with the right garments, and they clearly didn't have their oil. And so they were not let into the wedding party. And that can easily happen if we're not trying to get this correct. And so we want to get the dates on target as much as we can. And I say this with as much love and respect that I have for everybody. And I know that there's deep divides about this calendar stuff. And I sympathize with many of the churches that have to deal with it. They're all over the place. But that's the point of this video, is to help people understand. The new moon was just spotted yesterday. It's the beginning of the new month. 9 evenings from now, we will have, 8 evenings from now, actually, we will have the Day of Atonement, because it'll be the 9th evening to the 10th evening. And then essentially 5 days after that, we're going to have the Feast of Trumpets. And then we'll have the 8th day. We'll have the first day, which is a Sabbath, according to Leviticus 23. And then the 8th day, which is a Sabbath, we just read it, according to Leviticus 23. And so we're talking like the 20th and about the 27th or the 28th being Sabbaths. I got to do the math on a calendar. Maybe I'll have to do that in another video. And so that's all coming up. That's all coming up real fast. And so let us just prepare. Let us gear up for it. Let us be excited for it. I don't have a shofar. I should be getting a ram's horn. I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I was studying a lot today. I had a lot of homework and did not plan for trying to take the day off. And so that was all screwed up. But yeah, let's get excited. Let's be enthusiastic about this. Everybody, I hope you have a great Sabbath tomorrow, because not only do we have all these high Sabbaths coming up, this month. I mean, this month is a month of partying. Literally, we're calling it, I'm using Gregorian Babylonian terms, but September is literally a month of partying because we got the feast days. And so we've got the feast days and we got the high Sabbaths. Man, so many days off of work, you wouldn't believe. Anyways, you guys take care. You guys have a great night, and God bless you all. Thank you.